Hmm.
Uh, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, John, pass 7-0.
Thank you.
Okay, Scott has a presentation he would like to make.
So, we all know how much Gary likes Texans.
Oh,
I did just point out that there are 5 Texans on the board, so you know what they say about don't mess with Texans.
That doesn't stop me. It doesn't stop me. I'm unintimidated by that.
You know, Texas plays tomorrow night, play Alabama. I
You
expect you
really
to be
think-
wearing that shirt.
You really think I'm gonna wear this?
I expect you to be wearing that shirt. They play Saturday, I'm sorry. not
Saturday.
tomorrow. Yeah.
You
So,
will.
all right.
You will.
All right.
You will
I-
wear it.
I-
Yes.
I have been challenged. I'll be sure to drink red wine and spill it all over the donuts.
I love that, Gary.
There you go, Scott.
Thank you. I think.
Again, everybody that's here, thank you for coming. We welcome you. It's been, we've got some challenges come up this year. We're working through them. Some of the biggest stuff, the roofing projects. Few other situations with, landscape. And then, we're also working on the insurance situation. So we got some challenges that we're working through and that we'll have over the next year. And we're gonna have a good group on the board to take us through it. So with that, we'll go ahead and move into the reports. For the architectural review. First one that we have is unit 726. And basically what those owners have requested is to install a gable end on the back of their unit. It's standard plans. There's several that are already in place. And the plans are the exact same plans for the others. So I would make a motion that we approve the request for a gable end on unit 726. I second. Any other discussion on it?
I assume it's gone through, it's already gone through. Architect, where not the maintenance guys and everybody.
Yes.
Including the understanding by the owner that this becomes their responsibility if anything.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, then all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
There's one more, Adam.
okay.
Dan.
Oh, no, I.
You got it? Okay.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, let's get to that. Next one was unit 728. The owner just asked for sunshades on their back deck. And there, it was reviewed with the owner that they can use them when the sun is down, when they're not in use, they are to be retracted up out of sight. So, that one, I would make a motion that we approve the shades for unit 728.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And then the last one is unit 827 in Pinecone. And that's the one with the windows. I sent out to everyone an architectural drawing for the windows and also a computer rendering. And then also the architect's opinion. So I think we're safe in what they want to do. It'll look out over the forest. So there's no neighbor issues. So with that, I will recommend that we approve
Make a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the request for the windows in unit 827.
Just one comment on that
Let's
motion.
get a second first.
Second.
Okay, one comment on that motion. The architect has certified structurally that large window would be.
Yes, yes.
Just note that
Yes.
for the motion.
And they did already go into the walls to make sure that the support beams are there like they were supposed to be, and they are solid. So, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, then that takes care of the architectural review. We'll move to rules and regulations, and Andy.
Well, everybody, when you bought your unit, signed the rules and regs, but there may be some questions, and if there are, feel free to call me. Or email me if you have questions pertaining to them. I would highly recommend you read through them, the new owners. Just so that you're on the safe side of what we need, what we're doing. That's it. Okay.
Then we will go to the financial report.
Okay, so this is our financial reports through August of this year. Go through last month. Where's the balance sheet here? The balance sheet?
That is
Yeah.
the balance sheet.
Oh, there it is. I'm sorry. Thought I saw. Never mind. Brain fade.
Oops.
Okay, so first of all, we're looking at the balance sheet, which is a snapshot in time. It's like as of the end of last month. This is our current assets and liabilities position. We've got about $1 million, little over $1 million in cash assets, broken down into the categories you see there. Account 106 is the balance in the special assessment account. This is for the lodge roof. Accounts 107, 8, and 9 represent our reserves. If you notice previous reports on this, we had an account with the Bank of the San Juans, a local bank in Durango. We have closed that account. We drew it down, money out of reserves that was designated to be spent on the lodge roof as a contribution from the general funds, or from the HOA funds. And so that money has been drawn out of the Bank of the San Juans. The account, the rest of the balance was moved into our new Edward Jones reserve account. And then we still have money in First Internet Bank of Indiana and Stearns Bank in Minnesota. Both of those accounts, 107 and 108, are laddered CDs, which as those CDs as they mature, we're going to be moving those amounts, those funds into the Edward Jones account. And ultimately, our entire reserves will be on deposit with Edward Jones. Now, the reason we had money in various banks was to stay within the FDIC insurance limits of $250,000. The benefit of having our money in Edward Jones, and all of it in Edward Jones, is that money will be managed to be distributed among banks within those accounts. So not all of our money won't be, even though it's in the same investment account, it won't be all in the same bank. Hey, John, would you stand up? Are you still there? Yeah. John Mills is an owner, 202. He's in the back. And John approached me several months ago and talked about how we could better manage our reserves. And after talking with Elisa and I and members of the board, we decided to, move all our money into an Edward Jones, investment account. And John is managing that for us, and he's doing a real good job so far, and I'm in contact with him weekly, if not more often, yeah. Thanks, John. Okay, so moving into accounts receivable, is basically some assessment accounts that are still, that are unpaid as yet. Owner's assessments, part of the 62,000 of that is is lodge special assessments that have yet to be paid. Sounds like a big number, but there's a number of those that are, the owners have sold their units and they're closing shortly, and so that number will come down. Let's see. I didn't have any other comments on, go ahead and scroll down, Gary. Didn't have any other comments on any of the other assets. Under liabilities, I always get the question, what's deferred revenue, account 240? And this varies from month to month, and it's basically 1 month of HOA fees. That's account number 240 there. Scroll down some more, Gary. I believe account 262, that's been paid off, so that's no longer an asset, right?
Right.
That's gonna come up there.
Yeah, through the audit process.
Yeah, through the audit process, okay. And then that's pretty much it for the balance sheet. On for the income statements. Now, as opposed to the balance sheet, which is a snapshot in time of our financial position, the income statement is a year-to-date accounting of our revenues and expenses. The first category is 400 accounts are our income accounts. Everything there is pretty much in line, with the exception of maintenance revenue, account 404. It's well below budgeted amount, and what our maintenance people tell me is that this is mainly attributed to just simply fewer maintenance calls. This is typically where this revenue comes from is when maintenance calls, a unit owner calls maintenance, says, I've got a problem, I've got a plugged up toilet or something else that needs repair, and maintenance comes in, fixes it, we bill the owners, and that's where that revenue comes from. But we're just getting fewer and fewer calls, so we're gonna have to relook at how we budget that in the future. Go ahead and scroll up there, scroll down. Okay. Administrative expenses. Or actually, scroll back up there. Okay, so if you look at the bottom line there on our revenues, we're slightly unfavorable by about 20,000. So just wanted to point that out. We're just a little under on the revenue, and that's mostly because of the fewer maintenance calls. So now go ahead and scroll. All right, so major category 500 accounts is administrative expenses. Everything there is pretty much in line. We haven't, accounting hasn't had any money spent, but that's our tax preparation, and that'll be
That's done immediately after the audit.
right after the audit, so
Which is,
that'll fill in. And then if you scroll down, Gary, to the total. So the administrative expenses are overall favorable by a little bit there, so that's looking pretty good. You want to scroll down to the operations, okay? So the first two lines there, 610, 612. This is 610 is our contract with BHP. That's all of our maintenance labor. It's above budget, but there's a good reason for that. If you look at account 612, which is significantly under budget, there's an offset there, and the main reason for that is we're using more in-house labor to do work around the property than we are going to outside contractors, and 612 is where the outside contractors would be built. So we're using less outside contractors, more in-house labor, and that's really a benefit for us, as in-house labor is a bit cheaper than that. Outside services billed to owners is well under budget, but that corresponds to the revenue account 404 that I talked about. Further up on the in the 400 accounts. If we have fewer maintenance calls, which means less revenue, we also have less material costs and possibly outside labor costs. So those two things correspond. Count 616. Everybody knows what's happened with snow removal. We're way over budget on that. It's all about Mother Nature and what she presents us with, so we'll probably have to budget for more money in 2024, and hope we don't have as bad a winter as we had last year.
Just one quick question, just that
Hang on.
Oh, okay.
I'll open it up to questions to the owners. After I'm done. I don't see anything else there. Gary, you want to scroll down? Okay. The only thing I see on this page that's a little bit out of line is the fog windows 662. I think, Gary, there are three of those in the schedule to happen here. There's four
now, yeah.
to happen very shortly, so that money will be spent. And will reflect year end. Total operations expenses are a bit over budget. Again, that corresponds to the items that I pointed out earlier. If don't go too far. I think by the time I mean, that looks bad, we're overspent there. And I'm gonna predict that it might get a little bit worse. So something looking at it, projecting, when we fill in some of the things that we haven't done yet, that number could get a bit worse. And it's mostly because of the snow removal. Personnel expenses, a little bit over budget there. Wages are up. We've had a little bit of turnover. We hired some people, and when we hire people, they're looking for more money than we had paid in the past. It's very difficult to get employees, potential employees, to drive 40 miles round trip and work up here. It's just a challenge. So salaries expenses are a little bit over budget as well. That may trend down, so that may look a little bit better at the end of the year, mostly because we're down to 2 employees,
Yes.
and we'll hold it at
Start
that,
the level, yeah.
and it's leveling out, so that number will trend down, and that number, if it doesn't come back down to budget, it'll be closer anyway. Utilities, utilities overall are a bit under budget. We're a little bit under budget on water and sewer. Satellite TV, yeah,
Those
we
couple.
had, I don't know, our satellite TV company, grew because in our first contract, which by the way has just been renewed, our first contract, the payments were made through a third party. And this third party was very difficult for us. We had problems with them all along the way. And for some reason, 2 payments this year were about half what they should have been.
Yeah, 2 invoices.
2 invoices were half what they should have been. We paid them. We didn't question it. It is what it is. So that number will probably stay at that lesser level favorable to budget to the end of the year. And then, I think I mentioned this at the last meeting, but our new contract with Groove has been finalized, and our satellite TV costs, which have been about $32 a unit, are now going to be about $16 a unit. And that's mostly because we paid for the infrastructure that was put in during the first contract,
And when will that start showing?
November 1st. Yeah. So total wise, utilities are running under budget, and I expect it to pretty well stay that way. Water and sewer is looking real favorable, and even though we've just finished we haven't paid the August water bill yet, have we? They won't be paid till September,
Right,
and that was our highest irrigation use month.
yeah.
And so that may come up a little bit, but. Anyway, if you look down towards, scroll down more, Gary, right about there. Up, back up a little bit. Okay. So, if you look at our total income versus expense, we're at a $217,000 deficit, but when we budgeted for a contribution from reserves of 133,000, so our actual net deficit at this point is 84,000. And when you think about how bad the snow removal costs were, that doesn't look all that bad. Yeah. But I do expect it at year end to go a little more negative. Okay. On to the capital page. Okay. The revenue's fine, go on up from there, go on down from there, Gary. Okay, yeah, right there. So these 800 accounts are the capital, the special projects, the one-time projects that we budgeted for this year. The deck railing painting is done. The parking lot in the lodge, because we made the decision that since the lodge roof was being done and the parking lot is getting taken up, time is being taken up, it's getting late in the year to do the resealing on the lodge. So we're gonna, and in the interest of saving a little money due to our snow removal, we're gonna defer the lodge resealing until next year. So we're actually skipping a year in our 4-year cycle of resealing the 4 parking lots. So we won't do one this year. We'll save about $32,000. The fire suppression pump 826. Thanks to our guys at PHP, they came up with a plan. Instead of replacing the defective fire suppression pump in High Point with a new one, they looked into getting the existing one rebuilt, and they've got that done. It's almost done, right?
It's done. It was.
It's done, yeah, okay. They got that done, and total cost for the rebuild plus the removal and replacement labor is gonna be 10% of that actual cost. It's gonna be about $3,000. So saved a whole bunch of money there. Unplanned, and we have how many more pumps that are gonna need that? 3 more. 3 more, yeah. So that would have been a total cost of $120,000. It's gonna be a total cost of about 12. 15. Yeah. Good job, guys.
Excellent.
Last item there, unplanned capital expenses. We had a management snafu, a former maintenance manager, property manager, what was Tim's title?
Operation.
Yeah, he had promised a unit owner in the lodge that a leak had been fixed that had damaged his unit. He had it repaired. And then this last winter, guess what? The leak happened again, more damage. So this owner dug in his heels and said, I'm not gonna send this to my insurance company. I want you to pay for it, because you told me it was fixed. Well, we looked at that, discussed it, and we decided to go ahead and pay for it. And so that's part of the money we spending on planned capital. And then we had two back decks in High Point that were sagging badly. One of them due to water damage in the wood, and what was the other one? Just
Same
thing. Same, both water damage. So we took care of fixing both of those. We redid the vertical support posts and the horizontal beam. And that pretty much ate up that in-plan capital expense cost. And we put this in there in the budget every year to cover, the old saying, you don't know what you don't know. And all three of those things that happened were things we could not possibly have predicted, so we had a way to cover them. So if you look all the way down at the bottom line on capital projects, scroll down, we're on the plus side right there. A little bit more. Scroll down a little bit more. Yeah, there you go. So we're on the plus side to the tune of about 41,000 on now. And then the last item is the I'm sorry, not the permanent reserves. You see there are projected additions to permanent reserves from various sources. Interest income is up, and that's because CD rates are up. At this time last year, I think rates were probably in the what, John, 2.5% range or something like that.
2.5%, 3%.
And now it's like double that now, so we can expect that interest income will continue to rise, and we'll probably budget for more next year. The unit rental revenue is 2 units that the units 110 and 114 that the association owns, and we lease those. Are those both leased to employees?
No, just one.
Just one. Yeah. The capital contribution from sales, this is the 2 months, is it 2
Yep,
months?
yep.
Yeah, 2 months of assessments that are charged to any new owner. Any new owners saw this on their closing documents, where you make an immediate contribution as a new owner to our reserves. And that's gone way above what I guess there's just been that many
More
sales.
families, yeah.
On that many sales. How many sales are bringing this year, Gary? Like
It's about 32
32?
right now.
So that's what that is. And then we had 2 vehicles that we felt we didn't need anymore. 2 Nissan Rogues, maintenance vehicles. We sold both of those. And that 8,200 is the net from selling them and then paying off the loans that we had on them. And then the bottom line, the memorandum at the bottom, go ahead, Gary, up a little bit. Okay, so that just shows our beginning balance, and then some kind of contributions from the carryover from the previous year, amount we drew to support operations and capital projects. And then the only thing this does not reflect, that will at the end of the year, is the 200 and how much did 2 payments? The 2 payments that we made for the lodge model that came out of reserves. 260.
Something like that.
Yeah.
The
First 2 payments. The first 2 draws.
For Ross,
For Ross,
Oh.
yeah, for the roof.
it's
I keep
133.
saying remodel, lodge roof.
Here
Yeah,
you go, I got it. 133.
yeah, so 266,000 will come off that. Because
Yeah.
we had made a decision back when to support the lodge lodge roof remodeling replacement project with an amount from the HOA funds due to the fact that there's so many common areas inside the lodge that are enjoyed by all owners, not just the lodge owners. This room being one of them. And then the last item is the service and security desk. So account 460, this is that much discussed $30 resort fee, of which we send $27.50 to
75.
Glacier, $27.75 to Glacier. And we keep the rest, which isn't much. But a lot of that, what's shown there right now, that revenue is actually owed to Glacier. So that number, is it safe to say that number is gonna look more like budget as we get to the end?
Yeah.
So there's some unpaid, there's some amounts in there that have not been transferred to Glacier for their resort fees on that there. Bottom line on the income looks pretty close, so no problem there. Expenses are a little bit. Well, actually, their total expenses are actually in line as well. And then with the carryover from the previous year, the net budget is. Go ahead, scroll down here. So the net is about 6,500 negative. So. Any questions from the board on that?
Bill, in addition to what you had said on the lodge reseal, and the savings, it's just logical that we wait till next year because we'll be trenching into that parking lot.
Ah, yes, thanks for mentioning that. Yeah, that's part of the lodge roofing project. The drainage project, we're gonna be cutting a path across the lodge down to, is that going all the way across the road into the pond?
No, it's more storm drain.
Oh, yeah, it's the storm drainage, okay. So we're gonna be cutting a trench in the lodge anyway. When's that, in the parking lot, when's that gonna happen? In October. So that puts us way late in the year to get any slurry, right?
So it makes sense.
Yeah. Thanks for mentioning that.
Yeah, just in case anybody isn't aware, because I got a question about it this morning. The heat edge, we're gonna do everything we can to mitigate the icicles coming off the front of the building. The heat edge has already been installed. We'll be having electrical contractor come out, to get all that. Also, there'll be guttering. And we'll channel all that water through gutters down into a drain. That will be taken across the parking lot, so the water will not just be
Under the
spilled.
parking lot.
Yeah, under the parking lot, so it will not just be spilled out to the parking lot. So. We hope that eliminates a lot of the ice that we've had in the past.
Is that gonna, in that grading that goes across right for this side of the porch shape?
Yeah.
Is that, this side of that, there's always been a huge sheet of ice.
It will help with that.
You think it'll mitigate that a little bit?
Yeah, it'll help some. Still gonna get the sheeting of the water belts on the parking.
On the parking lot, yeah.
Okay, we're gonna, get most of it off the roof and.
But it's mostly eliminating the icicles.
Right.
Any other questions? John?
Yeah, couple things, first of all, sometimes business has to be conducted in between board meetings. And Joe, our treasurer, has been basically designated by the board to handle some things. And but for instance, the Groove contract, the opportunity for the new contract came between, and you basically have been empowered by the board to act in the best interest of owners. And I can say from long observation of Joe's work, that when he does this for us, he does it very astutely, and he's very diligent about what benefits owners. But it is important for the board, I think, now that there's a Groove contract that we have not approved because it had to be done timely in between meetings. It's appropriate for us as a board to ratify that contract that will begin on November 1st. So I would move that the board ratifies the new Groove contract.
I'll second.
Discussion.
Any further discussion on
Just a note that we save money on that contract compared to what we've done by what half.
About half, yeah.
Joe, why don't you elaborate on that a little bit, just in case people aren't aware?
I did.
Oh, okay.
I thought we did, but yeah, we have a 5-year contract with Groove Entertainment for DirecTV service that expires in December. So with the approval of the board, I approached Groove and negotiated a new contract. We got the benefit of an early renewal. So it's gonna be, instead of December 31st, it's gonna be November 1st, so we got 2 months. Where the new contract goes into effect. Basically, what we were paying about $32 a month per household for before, we're gonna be paying about $16 a month per household. That's mostly because the infrastructure that was put in by Groove was financed as part of the first 5-year contract. That's done. And Elisa is very pleased to know that she doesn't have to deal with that third-party finance company anymore. We will be making our payments directly to Groove starting on November 13th.
That's all, I just find it staggering that we get all of that for $15.
We get a package that if any of us have a single family home, were to buy it from DirecTV directly, it would be probably upwards of $300.
That's,
Yeah,
that's what
300 a
I,
month is what I was thinking.
that's what I pay
What I pay.
in town.
Yeah,
324.
yeah.
And Joe,
It's a smoking
mentioned
deal.
we still have Sunday ticket.
And we still have the NFL Sunday ticket because you've all heard that the NFL gave the contract to YouTube TV if you're a football fan. Well, yeah, that works for single family homes, but DirecTV was able to retain the contract for hospitality, institutional, and large properties like ours. So HOAs, hospitals,
Bars and restaurants.
bars and restaurants are all still getting their NFL Sunday ticket directly from DirecTV. So we'll still have that. And we made sure we got it paid so that it would be effective this Sunday.
And even that was incredibly cheap.
$600 a year. $600 for this. Oh, no, wait.
This one, it was like $389.
$389 for the season for this entire property.
Any questions, comments from the?
On this topic, before we vote on this
contract?
ratifying this contract, owners have a right to comment or question.
Great work. I mean.
Yeah. Okay, all in favor of?
Just for clarification, will we see that savings on our quarterly?
Yes,
statements?
yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Starting with,
Since we bill, this week, next week, when I have time after this meeting, we bill for October, November, December.
Yep.
You said it starts November 1,
November
so
1.
I believe, so October will be the higher amount and then, 2 months of lower, and then starting in next year will be the full quarter of the lower amount.
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, John?
Well, and I think there were questions perhaps to
I
Joe on
think
the general
Brian had a question.
budget.
Is that $230,000 for snow removal? Did that include the removal from the roof also?
Wait, what, 230,000? Snow removal. Oh, yeah, it's the
Yes.
entire property.
And then how much do we have to pay for just for the roof portion of it?
When they shoveled it off.
Because that was expensive, wasn't it?
Oh, I don't have a breakdown of that.
Lisa, that's-
Somebody's trying to look at that now.
We've got the shoveling number.
Different pay.
I've got
Mark
that
has the-
total shoveling number.
Oh, roof shed when we were at 70.
But it's not all just roof.
Snow
large
removal
roof.
is 3 components. It's plowing, it's hand shoveling decks and sidewalks, and it's removal of snow off the roofs. And I think you had a look
I've
at
got
that,
a combination for shoveling and snow off the roof.
but you didn't have it broken
I
out.
didn't break it out.
I think that we ended up paying about 75,000 to shovel just the roof. But
Don't quote. I think that's what
Well,
we already.
It was $150,000 for shovelers down below and shovelers up above.
So about half of it was root shoveling.
Probably about it. We had to do 2 full shovelings of the lot.
So that's really blew our budget out.
Shoveling.
And with this new roof and the hot edge, we shouldn't have to do that anymore.
Compared to the last heavy snow season, we also had 2019.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, that's-
Yeah.
Took care of the budget.
Any other questions on the, Mr. Hyman? Yes.
Yes, Joe, you've got vast background, obviously, here in Tampa. And with the age of our buildings, we know the maintenance is gonna continue to rise. Difference between common elements and limited common elements. Can you explain who is responsible financially for common element repair and who is responsible for limited common element repair?
Okay, everybody help me on this. I believe common element repair and limited common element repair is all on the HOA.
That's my understanding.
Unless there's negligence on the part of the owner that causes damage to a limited, either a common element or a limited common element.
Why wouldn't we have limited common elements then?
Well,
Talk to the guys that drew this up 50 years ago.
They're not here. You were nearly here,
No,
let me
not
take
even
a shot.
close.
Let me take a shot.
please.
The common elements, very understandable why the association would pay for those, because they don't belong to anybody. And actually, even your
Well, they
limited,
do belong
They
to
belong to
everybody
everybody.
well, they don't belong to anybody.
individually.
Right, they belong to all of us, collectively, corporately. Now, the limited common elements, the most obvious example of that would be your back deck. Okay, which actually you don't own. It is a limited common element of the association. So when that has to be repaired or the painted
Example, the
Was
two
the-
decks in High Point
the
that had
deck
to be
sagging
sagged and
in
had to be
High Point.
fixed.
So, but, and you say, well, why is that a limited common element rather than just a common element? Because the association is gonna pay for repair of it, painting, etc. By the definition in the documents, you have exclusive use of it. Now, within restrictions, you can't paint it pink, but that's why I think they call it limited, Ron, it's because
Only the owner may access
Access.
that element.
that's,
So a hallway on the 4th floor here in the lodge is not limited common element. Everybody can access it. Is that correct?
could be, I think so.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, Larry, Eric, do you?
I would disagree with that. I mean, not like the front decks, but you go to your unit, you've got a dozen, like 25 cases on unlimited common element. Then anybody can go up on that deck if they want to.
It's a front
On a
deck.
front
It's
deck.
not
That's
limited
front
common
deck.
element.
I just
Front deck
meant
is
rear
not a
decks.
limited common element.
The back deck, you find common element. I don't think you cover the whole water.
Well, that may be so. I just use that as an example. It's to me, the back deck is the most obvious
Yeah.
example of the limitation side of it.
The
And
other,
it's cited
another
in
one
the
would be,
documents as such.
another one would be the ski closets in the outlying areas. That's a limited common element.
Yeah, it's a true statement.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is it can be a contentious issue in that, some owners think that because that deck is exclusive,
I think.
that they own it. And yeah,
DCCR is-
they don't. And of course, once a tree falls on it, the owner doesn't own
Doesn't want
it.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the budget? Okay. Okay, the next item is the property report.
I just have a few things, just some housekeeping. Jessica Bassett is our new office coordinator in the maintenance department. So if you see, she took Anthony Sutler's place. So Anthony took some other responsibilities on in within BHP. So that's who you'll be talking to if you make a phone call, or she'll respond to your emails.
What's her name again?
Jessica Bassett. Here in the next maybe month or so, few weeks, you'll be receiving an email from Gary regarding PMs, our fall preventative maintenance. Please sign up for that. It's included in your dues. It's just a good thing for us to do. We come in, we do some preventative maintenance. It's just good upkeep, good housekeeping for you. So please sign up for that. Gary will give you all the information in that email. So be looking for that. And we ask you and encourage you to sign up. As far as what we've been doing around the property this summer and into fall, we've been doing quite a bit of cast iron replacement as needed. Of course, the roof project, which I think we'll get into a little bit later. We've been staining and painting, as you have hopefully seen. It looks good. It looks just kind of a fresh coat of paint. In the lodge, we've been staining. That was done earlier this summer. Pinecone, we completed in June. And Gamble Oak, we completed in August. And right now we're staining in High Point. So hopefully you've noticed that and it looks good in your area. As Joe also said, we've been doing some deck repairs. Some decks were compromised. We've been doing that, working on that. And we also hired a new pest control company called Guardian. They're local, and we've had some positive feedback on that. So they've been able to take care of some pest control issues for us, and we've been really happy with that. That's kind of what we've been working on big project wise since the last meeting. So that's kind of all that I have, Rick.
Okay. Will you send me an email?
I absolutely will.
Itemized? Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is landscape committee.
So the committee met 3 times this summer. The meetings are open to all owners. And future meetings, we like to have, we're getting more and more owners showing.
Speak up.
Landscape committee has met 3 times this year. It's open to owners. We're getting more and more owners at every meeting, and we enjoy it. Most elements of the 2023 plan have been completed. We still have some boulder work that we'll do this year. Bobby and I have been working on getting the truckload of boulders in to put on places where we may want to discourage vehicular traffic. If anyone has a problem in front of their unit, I've talked to a number of owners who have said boulder here, please, boulder there, please, and we will accommodate. So you can only just ask. This year, probably the most work was put in on what I call the weed control issue. We did not do any weed control this year because it is an issue. That has resulted in a lot of weeds in places, and I've had a lot of comments, so bear with us, we're working on that. The committee dedicated a lot of time to this topic. We dedicated a whole meeting earlier in the season to this topic. The committee has prepared a memo to the board with a recommendation. We evaluated what was proposed. We have come with 2 detailed comments that we've requested in that report. We've had no comments yet, so this is a report that I'll just lay with the board today. But again, there are specific comments in that report in the summer, and we've summarized, and I'll read this with the summary in a minute. But we have had no comments from members on that. This is next. As a result of the weed control issue, we are being very attentive to new methods of organic weed control. Rich Wiltz, who is on the committee, is organizing a test study next year. We'll have a 5,000 square foot plot at High Point where we will be experimenting with what's called iron chelate, which is an organic mineral that is put down that has it's reported helps control weeds. We don't know the cost, we don't know the effectiveness, but we will be looking at that next year. And we'll also looking at an organic fertilizer to put on that plot. Stay tuned this time next year and we'll explain how well that worked and how much it costs. That is really it. I just will read the comments or the recommendations for the board that the committee came to in the report on the evaluation of the alternate proposals. So we recommended the following. the first before evaluation of compost tea. That the product being certified as safe for use in high density communities. The problem is it is a bacterial product. And there's the concern of, pathogens that may be carried with the product and we require certification before we can put it down. For the same reason we can't put down untreated water on our irrigation. Kids play on the grass. We need to have it approved. There's questions on whether these products have the nutritional component that we need to put down on the grass. We've asked for concentrations of nitrogen and other nutrients that would see in these products before that if they approved it to make to see if they'd work. We did not again put down any weed control product this year. But we did put down fertilizer, commercial fertilizer without weed control product. I've had a lot of people and I've noticed myself, it appears that just commercial fertilizer has resulted in a much thicker grass this year than we've had in previous years with spray on application Scots. The committee will take that up here in our meeting next week and we may continue that. So what we're recommending for 2023 now and onward is that we modify our past practices in two ways. One is that rather than spraying on weed control, we put it on as granular. It's not sprayed, it'll never be wet, and avoid the concern of pets getting their feet in the wet weed control product. And the second is that we continue with spot treatment in fall weeds. Maybe use something like Weed Be Gone from Home Depot rather than the more expensive product with spot control and limit the application to only where there's weeds. And that we continue that until we get done with our research project, and maybe that will lead to a more organic, less costly approach. But time will tell with that. We're just, not going to go cold turkey and change and end up with a bunch of problems, which in some places, I think especially pine cone, the weeds really gotten pretty bad this year. So that's what I have. The next committee meeting will be next Tuesday. Again, all are invited, and we'll get into everything in a lot more detail at that meeting. Rick, that's all I've got.
I have a question for you, Mark. This report you keep referring to, is that online somewhere
Yes.
for us to read?
Yep, it's been online since July 11th. It's under, if you go to the landscape committee, go to committees,
Yeah,
landscape committee, July 11th memo. It's been there for 2 months.
thank you.
Mark, have any thoughts on private planting?
Speaker, I didn't hear that.
I'm
Private planting in public areas?
Great question. One of the things, and we had a new owner, and I don't know who their owner is, if they're in the audience, stand up. And in the lodge that said jeepers, I would love to have a adopt a bed program. That's a great idea. Come to the meeting next week. We've talked about it. We are work as you've seen in the ornamental beds. We'll do pine cone next year. We've done and it's iterative. We did High Point last year. We did a lot of work on the beds. Gamble this year. Next year we'll do pine cone. We are churning up the beds. We're replanting. It's something that takes years to bring up to standard. If anyone would love to adopt a bed and go out and pull weeds on Saturday morning or plant something that looks really good, we have owners. If you go through Gamble where I live, we have owners who have adopted beds in front of their place. They look fabulous.
So we have to approve the types of things that are planted.
Yes.
We would like in general, native, low water, perennial plantings. Petunias look great, but they don't look great for long. But come to the committee and talk to us. The answer is yes, we want to work with you on that. In that vein.
I'd like to give a word to all of our items. It's
Thank you.
It's terrific. I guess my concern was when people go out and put in beds of their deck. Isn't that?
When you say off their deck, do you mean pots on the deck? Or do you mean,
No, I mean, I just, I'm not against it, I'm just thinking as a person who used to be there. That when there are, you know, flower beds here and treatment there, that wasn't approved by the association, that there can be problems. In maintaining it or maintenance around it.
Any beds that are out there should have been approved first.
and again, I think there's a rule that says
Yeah.
that any, I'll say tampering with landscaping needs to be approved by management.
Yeah.
And that does happen. I know the ones that I just referred to in Gamble, they came to the, to the association and asked if they could do it. And they have, and again, walk through Gamble Oaks, look at it, some of the two units, it's specifically on the, east side. Beautiful.
But Terry's concern is very well
Yeah.
spoken in the sense that, you know, if somebody goes out and just willy-nilly creates beds, and, you know, we have one example of somebody that we knew very well, that Joe and I have been around a while, a lady that took it upon herself in Pinecone to create her own bed outside of her unit, and then they sold the unit. You know, now what? So I think we have to be very careful and cautious about how we manage individual efforts along that line.
And I will add that one of the elements of the plan that the landscape committee developed about a year ago was to eliminate a lot of these historic beds that, you know, as John just said, people were there and they're left, so there, most of them are gone now, the smaller historic beds. But if you have an idea, bring it to us.
One of the other big things coming out of the committee too is we're looking to identify areas where we can transition away from grass to boulders, rock, mulch, stuff like that. And yeah, and we're looking to move in that direction.
And this is on the budget, it was wiped out this year, thank you, Mother Snow. But it is something that we will have a focus on to move it to xeriscape type of rock treatment, but it costs money, it is not free. To get there, it is not free.
And maintaining it is not free.
Yeah. Also, the boulders, you know, once they're in place, not much maintenance on those.
Boulders
And all the boulders we are getting free of charge. We'll get some from Glacier. And then Mark is also working with the highway department. Some of those stuff that's fallen across the highway there. They're gonna give us some of that. And they said they'll give us as much as we want because it's cheaper for them to bring it across the highway than to haul it off.
Yeah, there's a few of them that there's maybe a little bit of dynamite to get.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't think we need an actual formal board action for the plan, but simply the board can endorse the landscape committee's plan. And I think the board, I think we've all been in agreement that we like the work that Mark and the committee have done, and on behalf of the board, we will endorse the landscape committee's plan.
I also want to thank Mark, because he's put up a lot of crap this year.
Yes.
A lot more noise than I think he signed on for, so.
Mark and Rich Wilkes has also been a very big part of a lot of stuff that's going on, and he's gonna do that test with Dr. Brown, and we look forward to getting those results. So thank you, Rich, also. So with that, the next thing would be the Budget Advisory Committee.
Okay, Budget Advisory Committee was put together with a mission statement of providing input on the 2024 budget in support of the board. And the committee's met several times. Started a little bit behind because they they needed to really go through the financials and gain an understanding of what each account is and the presentation and why it's laid out that way. And the reason I mentioned starting out behind is if anybody is really interested in the financial statements and what they're showing and how the budget's arrived at, attend the budget workshop or watch it after the fact. Everything has gone through there. It's very transparent. But anyway, that's part of the ongoing work and making recommendations that might make things clearer in some accounts that it seems like the same thing is appearing several places, even though it's not, and in building out perhaps a different description of that. But anyway, so that's one of the things that the committee has been doing. They have also been looking at contracts for any feedback and thoughts about our contracts that we're engaged in, and visiting the capital asset replacement plan and the process behind that to gain a better understanding and make any recommendations about that going forward. And that's where we stand right now. There's no formal report put together as of yet. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. Okay, the next thing we'll move into unfinished business, and that's unfinished because we've tried it twice before. But the contractor policy, and we wanted to revisit that because of some issues we found in some units where contractors have come in and they've cut a lot of our electrical systems and wires. And we even found an instance where they disconnected everything for an entire building. So there was no fire protection in that building, in things of that nature. Some other things, lofts, access, approved access, and things of that nature. So we had come up with a revised contractor policy. It's been distributed to all the board and some comments were made. It's also been distributed to all the ownership. So everyone's had an opportunity to look at it. So I don't want to go through the entire thing. A couple of questions that did come back to me were when you refer to contractor and what we mean here, and it says up at the top, whoever's performing the work, whether it's an owner, a paid contractor, father, brother-in-law, son, wife, that refers to the contractor, person that's doing the work. And then another question that I got was, say there was something found and that contractor is banned from doing further work. If it's an owner, you know, are they still able to do stuff like painting, changing fixtures, stuff like that? Yeah, that's not what we're talking about. What we're referring to is, you know, major structural work and wiring, things of that nature. So anyway, with that, I would make a motion that we approve the amended contractor policy as presented. Who? Scott second. Okay, any other discussion from the board? Anything from anybody in the audience or online?
Yeah, Rick. Hi, this is Scott Herman from Phoenix. We're in 844 Pinecone. This, I hope, is the space to talk about the loft contractor specification.
Yes.
Yeah. So, you know, first of all, I appreciate everything the board does, and I'm very impressed with the professionalism of everybody on this board. This is the first issue since we've owned our unit that's come to my attention that I really wanted to speak up about. The concern is that if you pass a sweeping loft restriction, making all future loft remodels meet living space requirement, it's really going to tie the hands of owners who want to use storage space, but can't achieve that living space requirement. And, I think it warrants the board to tap the brakes and really look at this, explore it and study the issue and see how it could negatively affect owners. My concern really is twofold. One is by tying the hands of owners so they can't use their vertical space for storage, it really creates problems. We would have never purchased our unit in Pinecone if we didn't have our pre-existing loft space. And I was able to actually, for a period of time, we were on the wait list for storage in the lodge. But when our number came up and we were offered that storage space, I was able to decline because we met our needs within our own unit. So that's the first concern. The second is in ski towns in general, as I mentioned in my email to the board, vertical space has really become a key selling point for units. And my concern is if you put a broad restriction, you're really going to put a damper on real estate values, resale values, and so forth. So those are my two concerns. My request and my ask would be that the board just tap the brakes and really study this issue. I think what's driving it is a concern about risk and how people in the rental pool have been using their lofts. But my hope is that there would be another solution other than just broadly tying the hands of owners who wish to use their storage space and vertical space for storage purposes.
But we're not restricting any of that usage. The only thing we're addressing is the access to that space. If we, what we're trying to prevent is, say, for you, if you added a loft for solely for storage, then 2 years down the line, you sell your unit, and then the subsequent purchaser wants to use that for living space. All we're trying to address is the access to that space.
Well, I think my main concern, Rick, is that
all we're trying to do is clarify that access to that space meets building code for living space.
right. And by doing so, I think you're going to prevent a large swath of owners from being able to use any kind of loft mechanism within their units. My understanding is that a living space requirement is a much more onerous, much steeper climb to achieve. And case in point, there's a unit on the market right now, 760, that we've been eyeballing as a possible starter unit for our daughter, contingent upon using vertical space for storage. I don't think there's some units within Tamarron that simply wouldn't be able to meet that requirement of living space, as far as what the requirements are for that. So that's my concern. By passing something like this, which is really sweeping, you're going to prevent owners from simply using vertical space for storage purposes. And that's why, I fully understand that the board is looking out, trying to look out for all the owners' collective best interests and try to engage in some risk management. But I think this is an area that really deserves further study. Bring some risk managers on board, bring some real estate brokers on board. Is it a viable concern that if you limit vertical space usage, are you going to negatively affect property resale values? I think those are legitimate questions. And I certainly don't pretend to have all the answers to those, but again, this is something that caught my eye, knowing that our loft in our place was a really critical selling point when we purchased our unit. So I'd hate for the board to make a hasty decision and then have unforeseen ramifications down the road for all the owners. So those are my thoughts. Thank you. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. I haven't actually looked over the new policy yet, and I am a contractor, this type of work that I do. My question is, are you saying that essentially for loft space to be built, that it needs to meet like universal builder code essentially to be used as square footage that a person can occupy? Is that essentially like what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. And so if someone wanted to build things that were not square footage for an individual to use for occupying, it's not contingent upon this change essentially. That's different. That's a separate thing And if I wanted to, like you say, build storage for X, Y, and Z, any of that's just fine as long as I'm not planning on putting a bed up there essentially.
What's happened in the past is we've had loft space built. And they were not to living space code. It was said, yes, I'm gonna use that as storage.
Yeah,
Then that unit was put on the market for rental. Using that loft space
to
as
accommodate
living
more
space
people. Yeah, I
that did
understand.
not meet building code.
Okay,
And
interesting.
that is the intent of this policy, to prevent that type of stuff happening.
How many units? I think I was under the impression that most of that stuff had already been built out. Are we still seeing the requests for new loft space?
Not much.
And how many units even are equipped to have loft space? I mean, I don't know which units we're talking about.
Units in Pine Cone and Gamble, I'm not sure, Stacy, you could probably talk more to High Point.
You can put them in, you can put a loft in an IB at High Point. Many of those have been done. You could put a loft in an A unit in Pine Cone and Gamble Lake. Some of those have been done. You can put a loft in the lodge, fourth and fifth floor.
So here.
And many of those have been done.
We're talking always about new remodels.
Yeah.
We're not asking anybody to change their.
Oh, no,
footprint.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying, these are kinds, of these are potential,
Right,
right?
right.
You can, you've already got a loft in. Yeah, see, we already have lofts in, the west side units in the lodge. And I don't think that, I guess those are already set up as living space.
So you may be able to answer this question, or Greg. I mean, Bobby, you might be able to. Greg, what would define living code? What is it? The stairwells? What makes this difficult?
Egress and stairwell. Yeah.
So is it the pitch of the stairs?
Yeah, like, like Scott's example, and like his and many other condos already have an existing loft that has a ladder to it.
Yeah, it just got a ladder.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think Eric has, don't you have one of those, don't you, Eric? Oh, okay. Yeah, good.
I was gonna state, like, if, for example, you're saying if someone is sleeping up there, technically you have to have egress points. And if from like a
New
building
window.
perspective, that makes sense. There's also some things that become a little bit more that I've seen, like in certain areas, you have to, your stair, treads, but also width, like, your stair width, it has to be 36 inches essentially. That's a lot of space in a unit, where if you would essentially be not compliant with code if you had stairs that were not that wide, but you wanted to shrink them up a little bit because it's a small space. I can see his point as far as like, there's certain components to universal building code that, in my opinion, they're important, but they're not the same, like ceiling height, for example, or clearance. There's some things, and I've seen lots of units grandfathered in, not in this building, but in places that I've done remodels on, where it doesn't fit the code now, but at the point of construction, it wasn't a problem, and it's safe, it's perfectly fine. It's not like your stair width being any, 2 inches under 36 is really gonna make that much of a difference to how safe it is, but it might make a large difference to how the square footage can be used in a unit. So, I mean, I haven't, like I said, I haven't really looked into it, and I don't know, but I can see both sides of this pretty well, where there's some components that are like, you want it to be safe and you want it to meet standards of construction, but at the same time, those standards of construction versus what's actually applicable to unit and necessary are sometimes different. So.
Yes, Eric.
I understand what you're saying. What I'm concerned about as a former board member and as a resident here, if our board knowingly allows people to do things that are not in compliance with the code of our county, are you endangering our liability insurance? Are you endangering our property insurance? I think you need to comply with the law of the county. I don't think there's any latitude there. I'd ask you to think real hard about that if you want to allow people to do things that are not up to code.
If I could ask for clarification, the example you used where somebody built something that essentially what just had a ladder up.
Yes.
And the ostensible reason was to provide storage. But then later,
Yes,
the same property and the same
owner.
space, the same owner
Same owner,
was saying that that was
living space.
living space. And what Eric, I think, is saying is if we approve something as living space with simply a ladder, and then there's an accident, and I appreciate your comments, because 36, 34, I mean,
Yeah,
probably, but
It needs to be safe though. There's.
I get that, but I think Eric's point is if we start endorsing things that are not according to code and people are going to have that as living space, well, are we putting every one of you at risk in terms of being able to keep ourselves insured?
Well, I don't think we should ever put this board in the position of saying something's safe and trying to trump what the county thinks is safe or not safe.
Yeah, I think the difference
The
here
county
is,
has a permitting process. If
Right.
they think 34 inches is appropriate in a certain circumstance, so be it. The county places it, that the board is.
And then the board requires that all the county permits be filed with the board, and I don't think we should do anything to usurp the standards of the county.
have we talked to legal on this at all?
Yes.
Well, I guess where I'm going with this is, if somebody says they're gonna use it for storage, can we put some kind of document in place that holds us harmless if anybody converts that space? If it was intended for storage, it needs to stay in storage.
We need to control it.
Right, right. If they want to do it livable space, great, more power to you, but you gotta be.
If it's a 2-foot shelf above on an A unit with a ladder, no one will ever live in something that's 2 feet deep. But if it's 8 feet deep. And they're
There's ain't
saying
much slab
storage,
futon up there, so then that's.
Well, and that's my concern. That's my concern exactly, is that it's requiring all future lofts to meet living space requirements. So it's taking everything else off the table. And that's the concern of really tying the hands of owners regarding what they can do and what they can't do to achieve storage space.
I think the question is though, not necessarily owners like you, but the next owner. Who comes along and participates in a rental program and converts that to a bedroom. And how are we able to interfere with that and prevent that from happening? Because there is a safety matter at that point.
Right. And
I-
all the more reason that I think that this really warrants further study. You know, there should be an inclusion process before somebody's allowed to be in a rental program. Does their unit meet specs? You know, so I think there must be another solution other than the one that's on the table.
When you- yeah, when you start getting into that, you're getting into invasion of people's private lives, you know. They're renting.
What's in right 18 for now? We have legal review.
Yeah, but we then can't vote.
Yeah, we can. Everybody's seen it. All we're saying is we want to strike that.
But it
provision.
Changes the nature of it.
So,
So,
okay, what we're deleting. Everything else is still been reviewed and owners have had a chance to.
As our attorney looked,
Not to my knowledge.
I mean, this all started with people taking messing with the fire suppression system, phone lines and that, you know, to safety concern. That's where this all started and then this was added. I understand Scott's concern. I certainly don't want to take away somebody's ability to use space for storage because storage is that's premium around here.
I would say we have to vote on what was presented to owners. Sorry, I don't see any way we can vote on something that is different from what was presented to owners.
I just think we're deleting something that's not really.
I understand what you're saying.
Delete this paragraph that basically says. Any lofts being added by a unit during a remodel must meet what's allowed in the town.
Understand the intent is to limit future construction. What control do we have? What liability do we have with current owners? Including speakers today that might utilize their storage space for living space. You know, you're controlling the future, but what do you do with the units that are already existing? Is not the liability the same for those as it would be for something in the future?
You know. Like everything else, if it was, code at that time and is not now, you know, it's grandfathered in. If we.
But it
find
wasn't code as
if we
living
find-
space.
Yeah, yeah, but if we find something like that, we can restrict the owner from renting that unit.
Shouldn't we though?
Yes. we
Take
should.
positive action
We
to
should,
protect us because
yes,
you know it's gonna fall back on the deep
Yeah.
pocket when it hits courts.
we should, but you know, are we going to? You know, twice a year go into everybody's unit and check it, stuff like that? No, we're not going.
No, but you can draw up a legal
Yes,
commitment from every owner that has space like that, that they are under a legal agreement not to utilize the space as living space. That way, at least, we're covered and have a document to show we made the effort.
And that's what I was looking to discuss.
at this point, I'll withdraw it and the future board can review with legal and you guys can take it up again.
Nice pass, Rick.
What we might do is just. go
Gary,
back-
you had a comment.
We can go back and redraft this and present it at a special board meeting or a future board meeting. You know, depending on what things.
No, I was just gonna say, this goes beyond access in egress. It also, Bobby and Greg can correct me if I'm wrong here, it also affects the sprinkler system. I think the requirements for living space are different from storage space as far as the sprinkler, the fire suppression system, and smoke detectors are concerned. So it goes beyond access and egress.
Okay. It's withdrawn.
But here's the other thing I'd say. Okay, people have already done it. That should in no way stop us from enacting something like this. Just because we don't know or we can't regulate what has gone before us. Because all we're doing is opening ourselves up time and time and time again. And saying, well, because somebody else did it, I should be able to do it now. I think we've been doing this for 1.5 years. I think it's silly to keep postponing. But that's my opinion.
I agree with everything else in there, but 18 seems to be the contentious point, which is why I suggested just striking that for the time being.
It's also the point that puts us at the greatest liability.
That's why I want legal was given.
Okay.
I mean, I hear you. I mean, you have been harping at us to get this on the agenda for 3 meetings now.
Okay, let's move on. We're not gonna do it at this time. Lodge roof progress.
Well, everyone can go outside and look. It's going great. For me, I was doubting Thomas when it came to what may be underneath the roofs as we peel back the old roofs. I was very concerned about rot. Great to be wrong. That's the only thing I can say. In one instance, it's great to be wrong. We effectively, and Bobby can add color to this, found no rotten sheathing underneath it. That's put the whole project ahead of schedule. It's going well. I'm not a roofer. I didn't know how to spell roof until about 3 months ago. But to me, it's going remarkably well. I won't say it again, but it's going remarkably well. And if Murphy stays home, we won't have any projects and it'll be done ahead of schedule. 23rd, I think September was when Ross says he sweeps the steps and leaves. So been very good. And we hope that next year we don't see those blasted icicles hanging almost all the way to the ground.
And then as far as the clusters, once that we had accepted the bid and got everything in place to get started on the lodge, the management team began soliciting contractors for the clusters. And they called approximately 20 roofing companies from Grand Junction to Albuquerque, asking if they could send them bid packages. Would they be interested? And a lot of contractors said they weren't interested. We did end up sending out 6 bid packages to roofing contractors. We got 2 back. So there will be a presentation tomorrow, a short one by Mark, just to kind of show what our options are for the clusters. And we'll be getting more information out on that. There will also be some meetings where we can take some owner input and things of that nature and keep everybody updated as far as where we're at there.
And I don't know what kind of AV will have available to us tomorrow.
Yeah, so it may be more verbal than visual, but
My recommendation is we had a workshop the night before last,
Yeah.
before last, it's posted. Pictures worth 1,000 words, and there's lots of pictures, so I recommend everyone look at unposted workshop there from the other.
yes, sir.
Mark, I want to return if I can to this building. And I often fall asleep, and maybe this was the case here. When and why was the decision to not add additional insulation to this roof made?
The additional insulation would have driven up the cost
Certainly,
tremendously.
but we're not going to do it again for 30 years.
No, and you know, it's a judgment call. It would have driven up the cost tremendously. It would have been an insulation on top,
Understand?
especially now that we know that there was no decking that had to be removed. It would have raised the elevation. One thing leads to another, and it's even worse if you listen to the cluster presentation 2 nights ago. Raises the elevation. Now all of a sudden we're doing major surgery on the stucco and such of the building.
Yeah, but not here, thankfully.
No, it would have required stucco cutting and restructuring and reflashing here as well. And the judgment was made that insulation is a great thing. It would have been good, but the business case wasn't there.
And there were negative aspects as well to having the solution. There were positives and negatives. But the cost was by far.
What was the nature of the additional cost? We're 100, 200,000, 500,000?
I think it was about $500,000. We'll have to go back.
Okay.
And it was a big cost. I can tell you, we haven't announced.
I withdraw the question.
Just hit them in the wallet.
The business case wasn't there in the clusters. We haven't announced numbers yet, but it's not a small amount. You know, just those panels, just the poly non-ventilated panels for a 4x8 sheet are $200 a piece.
I listened to your meeting this morning and I applaud the conclusion or semi-conclusion y'all came
Just
to.
imagine that you can go online, the 6-inch that gives you R22, which isn't that much. 4x8 panels, that's 32 square feet, $32, $200 for materials plus installation. Now do the math.
Go ahead, Eric.
Mark just covered it.
Okay.
22, you're not even meeting current code.
That's less than half
a very
current code.
efficient solution.
So, okay, the only other thing on the agenda was the group contract, and we've already gone through that 1.5 times. So, yeah. With that, we will go into executive session. We are going to discuss the 2 bids for the clusters. When we will come back, we anticipate we'll come back out of executive session to vote on accepting one of the contracts. And that will be the extent of it. We won't be discussing any other as far as numbers for assessments or anything like that. The action we anticipate will be solely to accept one of the 2 bids. So with that, we will.
Just real quick, and I might have missed this. In terms, I know that sent out an email, a month or so ago on the insurance.
Yes.
Curious to see if there's any progression.
We have not heard back from any of the brokers yet. Really, the biggest thing that we've heard is it's been much more favorable since we started replacing the roof. And the, what we anticipate doing in clusters will also be a positive. The latest thing that we've done, we've heard that State Farm they will still write policies until September 15th. So we've been working with some people there, trying to see what we can do with State Farm. I know Joe's been in weekly contact with some people and also Paige and Elisa, and we still have not gotten any numbers back yet. Our renewal will be on October 15th.
We were told at the beginning that we wouldn't get numbers on this until probably October, just part of the process. So don't expect it.
There's a pipeline right now and we're in it. But our renewal date is October 15th. The insurance brokers, the carriers that are busy with this, that are willing to write properties like ours are taking them in order as their expiration dates come. And like I said, we're in the pipeline. So that's why our numbers, we're not gonna have firm numbers probably until within a couple of weeks of our expiration date.
I'd be wary of State Farm.
I'm not working with State Farm. I'm not sure who
They have
is.
pulled out of, they're one of the biggest.
I'm
insurance companies that pulled out of California and Florida.
I'm working with two brokers and I do have some information that I'll share in executive session.
We've had other issues. as well, as we all know.
I don't know who's working with
I've
State
got,
Farm.
I've got some talks from State Farm, but I don't have anything to report.
If you guys have been, aware of what's going on, basically all through the valley. Anyone in the national forest, the insurance companies are not canceling, but they are not renewing.
You could throw this one out. Cascade Village. Now, they've got their insurance through Excess Lines, which is it's way off the map. We won't. I don't think we can possibly do it that way.
Yeah.
And you know what the number was.
Yeah.
And it was like, what? 10
We
times, 10
have,
times
we
their-
have some friends that own a unit at Cascade Village. Their insurance portion of their HOA fees went from 45 to 450.
10 times. 10 times.
10 times.
Now, they were under the gun. They
Yeah.
had, their expiration date was what, July 1st.
July 1st.
So we found out about this in June. And if they found out, they were also American Family,
Yeah.
and if they found out about it at the same time we did, they had less than a month to respond. We're lucky, we had several months to respond.
Yeah, I know, Durango Hot Springs has gone to Lloyd's of London for their insurance.
right, yeah.
Glaciers for their, not their residences, but Glaciers buildings. They're in the same process we are.
Go online and just Google HOA insurance and you will find lots of hits, lots of news articles about what's going on, and you'll get a sense of what we're up against right now.
Joe, what's the magnitude of increase that?
I can't even speak to that right now.
We've got nothing back.
I will say when American Family informed us
Yeah,
they
go ahead.
wouldn't be renewing, they said, we'll help you search, but be aware that you need to expect your premiums to go up 7 to 10 times. Not percent, but times. And we are hoping that that's not the case. We don't have numbers yet, but and then to see Cascade go up 10 times, it's going to be big. It's going to be material to us, but we're working very hard.
We're from Florida, so that's why I asked.
Well, you got. the
We've
same
not seen
issues.
10 times.
No,
We've
but-
seen doubling
Yeah, well,
and we're crying.
well,
If we can get
if we
doubling,
can
we'll
get
be
doubling,
happy.
we'll do cartwheels.
Yeah,
All right, and our current premium package is about $135,000, right?
Yes.
And our agent, when she informed us of this in June, that American Family wouldn't be renewing us, she anecdotally commented that our premium could go to 7 figures. Chew on that.
That's across, thank you for that update. That's across the board too. I mean, it's farm owners, it's trickle, I mean, it's not just HOAs.
If we had something we could give to you, we would love to share it. We don't have anything.
Yeah, I would just say. We are faced, the board is faced, the association is faced with. Several important issues at the moment, but I think I can say, speaking for the board, that we consider this issue the most important thing we're dealing with.
It's the most, it's the one that has potential to be the most impactful for sure.
That's why that roof is getting 100% done right now, because
Yeah.
we do that. I mean, that cedar shake was a deer kill.
All right, how many claims have you had for last year?
I mean, what?
From an insurance point of view, how many claims have you had?
Our loss history is it's great.
Great, yeah,
That's
good.
something we've got going for us.
Right.
We've got a number of things going for us. Our loss history is very good. We're less than 5 miles from a fire station. We have sprinklers throughout this entire property. We just took out a big liability with a wood roof. So we've got a lot going for us.
We've
But
got
that-
the golf
Central
course.
Spanish.
We've got a lot of golf course space, a lot of open
Golf
space
course,
around
there's
us.
a river down there, there's the highway there.
Comes down to insurance.
Our brush
profit.
fire risk scores are better than, I mean, Cascade Village's wildfire brush score was, I think in the 90s. We're down between 50 and 70.
We've got
So-
like a 1.5 million gallon reservoir capacity at our hydrant. We've got so many things
Yeah,
going
yeah.
for us.
It's
When-
not a property problem, it's an industry
Yeah,
problem.
It's an industry problem, yeah.
Last year, when we saw a $50,000 increase last year. And we asked, what else can we do to better our property? And they said, there's nothing else we could do to better it.
I mean, and this is such a problem.
But
for-
we
I mean,
still did do some additional fire mitigation on property.
And that's another thing that I've communicated to the brokers on. And I mean, we've had such a, no, I lost my thought. What was the? Yeah, never mind. It comes back to me, I'll tell you. Yeah.
Suffice to say, it's gonna be expensive. when we get it.
So, okay, with that, we're gonna go into executive session. If anybody wants to hang around, as I said, we'll come back. We'll vote on accepting one contract and that'll be it. We'll adjourn the meeting after that. So,
Thank
thank
you.
I'm not, okay,
Unmute.
go. Yep.
There we go.
okay, we'll reconvene the meeting. I have a motion. I move that the board accept the bid of Higher Ground Roofing for the replacement of the roofs at High Point, Pine Cone, and Gamble Oak at a base cost of $2,607,500. In addition to a contingency of $130,375 for a total cost of $2,737,875. I further move that the board fund the project through a special assessment to be borne by the owners of the units of High Point, Pine Cone, and Gamble Oak to be apportioned according to the square footage of each of the units. I also move that the board authorize the board president, assisted by the roof replacement committee and the board treasurer to, one, establish a schedule for the payment of the special assessment by owners, and two, to schedule the beginning and estimate ending dates of the project. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion passed. I guess we,
So we
want
can
to-
move to adjourn.
okay,
Okay,
I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay.
Okay, the meeting is concluded.